The fateful flight. The sound of suitcase wheels rolling on the tiled floor of LaGuardia Airport echoed rhythmically, blending with the constant murmur of announcements. Jonathan Miller, 45 years old, a literature professor, hurried toward the departure gate. He wore a simple white shirt, a gray vest draped over his arm, eyes checking his watch repeatedly. Flight 472 to Chicago will depart in 20 minutes. Passengers, please proceed quickly to gate 23. The female announcer's voice resounded through the hallway. Jonathan exhaled, thinking about tomorrow morning's presentation. He had to meet an important group of scholars, an opportunity he had waited for years. But deep inside, a trace of guilt lingered. Laura, his wife, had told him, "We want you at home this weekend, Ethan and I. Our son has his first basketball game." He had hugged his son and lied gently. "I'll make it up to you later." This is important work. Ethan nodded, but in the 14-year-old boy's eyes was a flicker of disappointment. Jonathan stepped into the airplane cabin, taking a seat by the window. Outside, the gray afternoon sky hung heavy, the clouds laden, as if foretelling something uneasy. The click of the seatbelt echoed as he tightened it. A flight attendant smiled. "Hello, sir. Please keep your seatbelt fastened as the plane prepares for takeoff." Jonathan nodded, returning the polite smile, then opened his laptop to review the presentation. The plane began to taxi. The engines roared, vibrating through his ears. Jonathan glanced out the window. The yellow runway lights slowly slipped backward, then shrank into tiny dots as the Boeing 737 shot into the sky. He inhaled deeply, the familiar feeling of business trips enveloping him again. But today, somehow, his heart was beating faster than usual, a vague premonition, as if something was about to happen. About 40 minutes later, when the plane was cruising steadily at 30,000 feet, Jonathan closed his eyes. He remembered last week's family dinner, remembered Ethan's laughter as he told stories from class, remembered Laura's warm hands resting on his shoulders while he worked. Suddenly, a loud explosion came from the right engine. Boom! The cabin shook violently. Passengers screamed, some thrown from their seats for not fastening their belts. "Oh, God!" a woman in front screamed. "What's happening?" A man's hoarse voice cried out. Jonathan's eyes flew open, his heart pounding. The engine roared and then choked, like a machine tearing apart. The cabin lights flickered, sometimes plunging into darkness, leaving only the dim blue emergency glow along the aisle. The acrid smell of burning filled the air. Jonathan smelled hot metal clearly, thin smoke creeping into his nose, stinging his eyes. A flight attendant tried to remain calm, but her voice trembled. "Passengers, please remain calm. Stay seated and fasten your seatbelts." The plane jolted violently, swaying. Jonathan gripped the armrest tightly, eyes fixed on the window. Flames burst from the right wing, shards of metal spraying out like deadly fireworks. He heard the captain's voice over the speaker, urgent and tense. "This is the captain. We are experiencing engine failure. Please remain calm and follow instructions." But the voice was drowned out by chaotic screams. The plane suddenly plunged several hundred feet. Jonathan's body lifted from his seat, the belt biting painfully into his stomach. His stomach turned upside down, his heart about to burst out of his chest. He turned to the woman beside him. She was clutching a little boy about 5 years old, tears streaming, whispering, "It's okay, honey. Mommy's here. Mommy's here." Jonathan's throat tightened. He thought of Ethan, thought of the basketball game he had missed, thought of the disappointment in his son's eyes. "Oh God, please give me a chance to return to my family, just once." He prayed silently, eyes shut tight, cold sweat running down his temples. The cabin shook more violently than ever. Metal screeched like torture. Screams, cries, prayers echoed everywhere. The space became a waking nightmare. Suddenly, Jonathan felt a sharp pain tearing through his chest. An invisible hand seemed to crush his heart. He slumped into the seat, breath ragged, vision dimming. In the brief moment before sinking into darkness, he heard a distant voice calling, both gentle and insistent. Then, everything fell silent. The moment the soul left the body. No more roaring engines, no more burning smell, no more chaotic screams. Jonathan opened his eyes, but the sight before him left him frozen. He saw his body still sitting there, slumped in the seat, head tilted to one side, the seatbelt holding tight. His eyes were shut, his face pale, his chest barely moved anymore. "No, no, this can't be," Jonathan whispered, but no sound escaped his mouth. He stepped back, but his feet never touched the floor, his entire body weightless. A strange sensation, both invisible and transparent. When he looked at his hands, he could almost see through them, as if they were glowing faintly. The sounds in the airplane cabin grew distant, like echoes from another world. The cries, the screams, the metallic crashes, all muffled by a haze of sound. He turned his head, seeing the woman beside him still clutching the boy, trembling, praying. A flight attendant rushed down the aisle, struggling to keep balance, her face ashen. But what stunned Jonathan most was that they couldn't see him. He raised his hand in front of the attendant, shouting loudly, "I'm here! Help me! I'm still alive!" No one reacted. They passed right through him as if he didn't exist. His heart wrenched, a terrible fear rising inside. Am I really dead? Suddenly, a radiant light appeared at the end of the cabin. At first just a tiny dot, then it grew larger, spreading out in a brilliant white gold glow. That light wasn't blinding like fire, but gentle, warm, like an embrace from afar. Jonathan squinted. The shimmering light swirled into a circle, like a door opening. From it, he heard strange sounds, not human voices, but like the whispers of wind, the soft hum of music. An indescribable peace seeped into his mind. In an instant, all fear dissolved. He felt called, invited, as if the light itself was whispering, "Come, don't be afraid." Jonathan hesitated, then stepped toward it. With each step, his body grew lighter, as if lifted by an invisible breeze. As he drew closer, suddenly he heard a familiar voice. "Jonathan." He gasped. It was the voice of his mother, who had passed more than 20 years ago. "Mother." His voice trembled. The sound came again, warm, full of love. "My son, I'm here." Tears welled in Jonathan's eyes, but they floated in the air, dissolving into the light. He couldn't believe it. His heart ached, torn between longing and fear. He looked back, where his body remained lifeless, face ghostly pale, while the airplane shook violently. The woman still held her son, sobbing. The attendant still shouted instructions. That scene drifted away, fading, like a film slowly closing. He turned again toward the light, where his mother's voice echoed. An irresistible force pulled him forward. Jonathan took a deep breath, or rather, his soul did. Then he let the light embrace him fully, carrying him away from the airplane cabin, the other world. The light engulfed Jonathan. He thought it would be blinding, scorching, but instead, a gentle, warm sensation spread through his body, like being immersed in warm water, like the soft breath of spring caressing his skin. He opened his eyes and froze. In front of him was no longer the swaying airplane cabin, no more screams, no smell of smoke. He was standing in a vast space, filled with shimmering white gold light. The ground beneath his feet was soft, like grass, but not grass. It glowed faintly, and each step he took sent ripples of gentle light. There was no sun, no specific source of light, yet everything was brightly illuminated, warm as though in an eternal dawn. Jonathan drew a breath, though he no longer had lungs, and realized the air here was fragrant, pure, smelling like flowers blooming after rain, like the scent of his own childhood memories. He heard a distant sound, not music, not words. It was a melody of peace, resonating everywhere, blending into every breath, every heartbeat of his soul. Jonathan, he turned around, and then, his heart clenched. Standing before him was his mother, the woman he had cried hoarse for on the day she passed more than 20 years ago. Her hair was still white as the last time he had seen it, but her face was radiant, glowing, and far younger. Her eyes overflowed with love, her smile gentle, just like in his childhood memories. "Mother," Jonathan's voice choked, trembling. He stepped forward, unable to believe it. She opened her arms. Jonathan rushed in, clutching her like a child. He felt her truly there. Not an illusion, not a dream. The warmth of her embrace wrapped around him, soothing every fear, every lingering pain. His tears fell, but this time they did not vanish. They sparkled like crystal drops in the air, then dissolved into the light. "My son," she whispered softly, her voice like a lullaby. "I am always with you." "You were never alone," Jonathan sobbed. "I miss you. I still have so much to say. I wasn't there when you left. I missed it." She placed her hand on his cheek, her eyes tender. "It's all right. I understand. Time on earth is only a moment. Here, love is forever." Jonathan wept like a child. For years, he had buried that regret, the pain of not saying goodbye. And now, every burden seemed washed away. The light around them suddenly stirred. Jonathan lifted his head. Another field of light opened, like a giant mirror. Inside it, his life appeared, vivid, alive. He saw his childhood, a boy running in the yard with a little dog. He saw his wedding day, Laura in a white dress, smiling radiantly. He saw Ethan riding a bike for the first time, falling hard, then getting up to his applause. But then, other images came rushing in. He saw Laura sitting alone in the living room, her eyes sad because he was gone so often. He saw Ethan quietly by the window, clutching the basketball with no father to play with. Jonathan trembled. "No, don't. Mother, I've made too many mistakes." His mother held his hand, her voice gentle but firm. "You must see, Jonathan. Life is a gift. You gave too much to your work and forgot the most precious gift, family. This is not yet your time to stay." He froze, his heart aching. In that light, he saw Ethan, his son, not a memory, but like a vision. Ethan sat alone in a dark room, his eyes devoid of light, clutching the basketball tightly. Beside him was Laura, thin, exhausted. Jonathan cried out, tears streaming. "No! Please don't. I must return to them. I cannot leave them alone like this." His mother smiled sadly, her eyes shining with pride. "Then you know what you must do, my son." Jonathan fell to his knees, clutching her hands, choking with sobs. "Please let me return. Just one chance. I promise I will love them more, live more fully." The light around him began to swirl like a vortex pulling him away. His mother's image faded into the distance, but her voice still echoed. "You are not finished yet, Jonathan. Go back." Jonathan screamed, tears blending into the dazzling light. An invisible force pulled him strongly, swallowing everything. Then, all vanished. Jonathan drifted in endless space, light swirling around him like an inverted waterfall, both soothing and overwhelming. He tried to hold on to the image of his mother, but it slowly faded, leaving only a distant whisper. "Go back. You are not finished yet." Then silence fell. No more radiant light, only a misty white expanse. Before him suddenly appeared a long path, paved with faintly glowing stones, leading to a massive golden gate. Jonathan walked forward, but with each step, visions of the future appeared in the mist on either side of the path. On the left, he saw Laura, alone in a quiet house, her hair disheveled, her eyes empty. Ethan slumped over his desk, tears streaming down his face. The basketball was abandoned in a corner. The whole house was filled with the shadows of loss. Jonathan choked, his heart clenched as if crushed. "No, that cannot be their future without me." On the right, another vision appeared. He saw himself, alive, though weak. He sat in the garden, Ethan running around laughing, Laura sitting beside him with a happy smile. In the glow of sunset, the family embraced one another. Jonathan froze, his eyes brimming. He understood. The future was not fixed. It depended on his choice right now. Suddenly, a guide appeared. Not his mother, but a luminous being in human form, gentle-faced, though indistinct. His voice echoed, powerful yet tender. "Jonathan, you have been shown. Do you understand? Life is not for chasing what will fade, but for holding on to what lasts forever. Love." Jonathan nodded, tears streaming. "Please let me return. I still have too much to do. I want to be with Laura, with Ethan. I don't want my son to grow up without a father. I don't want my wife to wither away in loneliness." The guide watched silently. Then he raised his hand, and from his palm radiated a glowing golden orb, within which appeared Ethan smiling, holding up a basketball. This is the bond. Your love for your family is the key. It is stronger than death. If you truly wish to return, hold it tightly in your heart. Jonathan trembled, reaching out to touch the orb. A warm surge of energy flooded his being. He felt love, hope, the burning desire to live. He shouted, "I choose to return. I choose my family." Instantly, the light erupted, the whole space trembling. The golden gate before him slowly closed, but in its place, a vortex of light opened beneath his feet, pulling him in. Before he was swept away, his mother's voice echoed again, soft as the breath of wind. "My son, remember. Live fully. Love with all your heart. Don't miss it again." Jonathan cried out in the light, I promise, Mother." The light swallowed him. Everything vanished. Only a powerful heartbeat resounded in his chest. The first sound Jonathan heard was a steady beep. Beep. It echoed, near and far, pulling him back from the abyss. He inhaled, and this time, his lungs filled with air. The sharp pain in his chest made him cough violently. His eyelids were heavy, but he forced them open. The white hospital lights stung his eyes. For a moment, he was dazed, until he saw two figures leaning over him. "Jonathan!" Laura's voice was choked with tears. She gripped his hand tightly, tears streaming down her weary but radiant face. "Honey, can you hear me?" On the other side of the bed, Ethan stood trembling. The boy's wide eyes were red, but when he felt his father's hand squeeze back, he burst into sobs, throwing himself onto Jonathan's arm. "Dad, don't leave me. I was so scared." Jonathan looked at his wife, his son. His throat tightened, words breaking out ragged, hoarse, like the hiss of wind. "I am back. I won't go anywhere again, I promise." Laura wept, collapsing onto his shoulder, her body shaking. Ethan clung tightly, his tears and sobs mixing. Jonathan closed his eyes, feeling his heartbeat steady once more. His mother's words echoed somewhere deep inside. "Live fully, love with all your heart." He smiled faintly. For the first time in years, he felt true peace. No more stressful meetings, no more crushing work pressure, only one thing worth holding on to: family. A few days later, as his strength returned, Jonathan was moved out of intensive care. The company, friends, and family all opened their arms to welcome him. But for Jonathan, everything had changed. He was no longer the man buried in work, chasing achievements. Now, each morning, he woke up grateful to breathe, to see his wife's eyes, to hear his son's laughter. One evening, as sunset bathed the garden in golden light, Jonathan sat on the wooden chair, Ethan playing basketball nearby, and Laura watering the flowers. He leaned back, gazing at the sky, where the shimmering lights stretched endlessly. He whispered, "Thank you for giving me another chance. I will live differently. I will love more." A soft breeze drifted by, like an answer from somewhere far away. Jonathan closed his eyes, smiling with contentment. What do you think of this extraordinary journey? If it were you, standing at the choice between leaving or returning, what would you choose? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear them. And don't forget to follow the channel so we can continue exploring stories that touch the heart together.